Have you ever had that feeling like you're running faster and faster on a treadmill, but you're not actually going anywhere? That the basic deal your parents and grandparents lived by, work hard and you'll get ahead, just doesn't seem to hold up anymore? Well, you're not crazy. It's not in your head. What we're going to do here is investigate a massive shift in the American economy, a quiet rewiring that's been happening for the last 40 years. Okay, let's get into it.
So, our whole investigation really starts with one single, incredibly famous graph. It's a chart that went totally viral a while back because it put a picture to a feeling that millions of people have, but have a hard time putting into words. It tells the story of two lines that used to move in perfect harmony, and then, all of a sudden, they didn't.
And boom, here it is. This is the great decoupling, and what it shows is pretty staggering. Since 1979, the average American worker became twice as productive. I mean, literally, our output per hour doubled. We got way more efficient. But then, look at that second bar. The pay for all that extra hard work, after you account for inflation, it barely budged, a measly 12%. These lines didn't just drift apart. It's like they started living in two completely different economic universes. So this right here, this is the big question, isn't it? If American workers were creating trillions and trillions of dollars in new wealth with all that productivity, but it wasn't ending up in their paychecks, then where in the world did it go? That's what we're here to do. We're going to follow the clues and find that missing money.
All right, so first up, let's talk about what this actually feels like in the real world. Before we dig into the why, let's really understand the what. We'll compare what a normal middle-class life looked like back when those lines were still connected versus what it looks like today.
Now, this is where things get really fascinating. Because at first glance, the numbers can fool you. In 1979, the median household income was about $44,000 in today's money. But here's the crucial part. That was often earned by a single person, and it was enough to buy a home, raise a family, and look forward to a pension. Now, fast forward to today. The median income's higher, sure, it's around $70,000, but now it almost always takes two incomes to get there. And that bigger number buys you less security, less house, and for most people, a pension is a total fantasy. This isn't a story about people not working hard enough. It's a story about the rules of the game being changed. Okay, time for our first big clue. To get where the money went, we've got to look at how the basic machinery of the economy was quietly, almost secretly, rewired, starting back in the late 1970s.
This timeline is basically the smoking gun. It all started in the late 70s when this new philosophy took over corporate America. The only thing a company should care about is maximizing shareholder value. The goal wasn't to build great things or serve employees. It was to make the stock price go up, period. Then, in 1982, a super boring-sounding SEC rule change happened that had massive consequences. It allowed companies to buy back their own stock like never before. Before, extra cash might be reinvested in the company. Research, new equipment, higher wages. After this rule, that cash got diverted to just pumping up the stock price. By 2018, companies were spending $800 billion a year on this. Money that, in a different era, might have gone into your pocket.
And this right here, this is the direct result. The second that executive pay got tied to stock performance, the gap between the CEO's office and the factory floor just exploded. I mean, look at this. In 1965, the average CEO made 20 times what their average worker did. By 2020, it's a mind-boggling 350 times. It's not because CEOs got 17 times better at their jobs. It's because the entire incentive system changed. This created a chasm between the top and everyone else that has defined the modern economy. So you can see this happening on a massive national scale. Back in 1970, about 64 cents of every dollar of income in the country went to labor, wages, salaries, benefits. Today, it's down to just 57 cents. Now, a 7% shift doesn't sound like a lot, but believe me, it is. We're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars that have been quietly moved from the pockets of people who work for a living to the people who own capital, the owners getting profits, dividends, and stock gains. But that just raises another question, right? Why couldn't workers just demand their fair share? That brings us to our second big clue, a dramatic and really systematic shift in power away from American labor. Back in the 1950s, 1 in every 3 workers was in a union. Labor had real muscle. They had real bargaining power to make sure that as their productivity went up, their wages went up with it. But that power was intentionally dismantled. A huge turning point was in 1981, when President Reagan fired more than 11,000 striking air traffic controllers. That sent a shockwave through the entire country.
The message was loud and clear. From that point on, union membership just collapsed. And with it, the main tool workers had to claim their piece of the pie they were helping to create was gone.
Okay, on to our third and final clue. This involves two really powerful forces that completely changed the rules of the game itself: globalization and a brand new economic philosophy that started to prioritize extracting wealth over creating it.
Think of globalization as a trapdoor that suddenly opened up beneath the American middle class. Companies realized they could make the same stuff overseas for a tiny fraction of the cost, and that just devastated manufacturing communities here at home. Just in that one decade, from 2000 to 2010, 5 million of those stable, good-paying jobs just vanished. And for the workers who were left, it created this constant unspoken threat. Either you accept lower wages, or we'll just pack up and move this job somewhere else.
At the same time, the economy started rewarding this weird thing called rent-seeking. It's a fancy term, but the idea is actually super simple. Imagine instead of building a new, better road, you just buy the only road into town and set up a toll booth. You're not creating any new value for society, you're just extracting wealth from everybody else by controlling access to something they need.
And housing is a perfect and frankly painful example of this. In 1970, a typical house cost about twice what a median family earned in a year. Today, it's 5 times. The house isn't 2.5 times better, but thanks to things like restrictive zoning laws and a flood of financial speculation, the rent on this cornerstone of middle-class life has been driven into the stratosphere. The game shifted from creating value to just controlling the toll booths.
So, let's put all the clues together now. You have a new corporate philosophy, you have the collapse of worker power, and you have a new economic game that rewards extraction. The verdict is pretty clear. The system itself was completely rewired. But the crazy thing is, the story we tell ourselves about how to succeed, that never got updated.
And this number, this is the end result. 50%. That's the chance that someone born in 1980 will earn more than their parents. It's a coin flip. It used to be a near certainty. For someone born in 1940, it was a 90% chance. The American dream of upward mobility is now literally a 50-50 shot. This quote just nails the psychological tension of our time. We're all told to believe in a meritocracy. Work hard, grind, and you'll make it. But the data shows something else entirely. It shows that where you end up has far more to do with where you started. The rules of the game are different now, even if the motivational posters on the wall all look the same. The source material calls this a slot machine economy, and it's just such a powerful metaphor. The system is designed to have just enough winners, just enough jackpots, to keep everybody else pulling the lever. It encourages us to blame ourselves when we lose. Oh, I should have worked harder, rather than asking if the game itself is rigged. It's a design that keeps just enough hope alive to prevent people from walking away.
So let's zoom out. What are the consequences for a society that's built on a broken promise? What happens when an entire generation realizes that hard work alone is no longer the answer? Let's start with this number, $45 trillion. That's how much wealth, according to one major study, was transferred from the bottom 90% of Americans to the top 1% since 1975, all because wages stopped tracking productivity. This isn't a rounding error. That's a fundamentally different life for tens of millions of families.
And the fallout from that massive transfer is all around us. When people feel the system isn't fair, they lose faith. Trust in our institutions, it's at rock bottom. We see growing political instability. People are delaying huge life decisions like getting married or having kids because the future just feels so uncertain. And you see cultural trends like quiet quitting, which is really just people saying, hey, if the reward for going above and beyond isn't there, why should I?
And that leaves us with this final, powerful, and honestly unresolved thought. The gap between productivity and pay, between the story we're told and the reality we live, it's not sustainable. It can't last. So the real question isn't if the system is going to break. It's already breaking. The real question we're all living inside of right now is, what comes next?